way, there's a big controversy going on in Burrillville, and it's about time the entire region start paying attention to it.
The Dan Yorke State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Taco Comfort Solutions.
Great to have you aboard. Thanks very much for tuning in. They got this energy plant that they're talking about in Burrillville, and the people in Burrillville certainly know about it. There's nobody in Burrillville that wouldn't be able to talk about it, probably pretty knowledgeably, but the rest of the state might be about this, and so I want to kind of clue you in with some of the folks in town and the advocates opposing, which is going to incite the folks who want to see it happen. And so there might be multiple shows on this, both on the radio, weekdays noon to 3 on WPRO, and right here on My State of Mind. Welcome aboard. Let's check in on what's going on in the rest of the world. There's this thing called the presidential race. New York's primary last night. The headline reads as follows, and they're off and running. Trump thinks he's won it. Not yet. Clinton has won it. No doubt about it. Here's the report from CBS.
Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton celebrated their New York primary victories with tributes to their home state. Clinton chose Alicia Keys, while Trump went old school Frank Sinatra. New York, New York. With New Yorkers singing their praises, Trump and Clinton are closer to becoming their party's presidential nominees.
The race for the Democratic nomination is in the home stretch, and victory is in sight.
We don't have much of a race anymore. Senator Cruz is just about mathematically eliminated.
The question now becomes, what can Clinton and Trump's opponents do to stop them from winning the nominations?
If we nominate Donald, Hillary wins, and Hillary wins by double digits.
Ted Cruz was shut out in the delegate chase yesterday, and Trump now needs just 393 more to clinch the nomination.
We have a path toward victory, which we are going to fight to maintain.
Bernie Sanders' path is now much more narrow. He needs to not only win, but win big in the remaining states.
You can add the numbers up to get a way for Sanders to survive, but you almost need to do some voodoo to make it work.
Clinton's victory means she needs only about 30% of the remaining delegates to win the nomination.
Which means it's a lock, you know. Alicia Keys, cliche. Frank Sinatra, even more cliche. I'm glad they're out of New York. They're coming here, by the way, next week. Hillary's coming on Saturday, and the Donald's going to make a surprise trip. Or not. He's got the place locked up. Bernie looks withered, but he did a pretty good job so far, don't you think? Governor and grants. Now, Ken Block, watchdogri.com or .org, former gubernatorial candidate, said this about one of my biggest pet peeves, and that's the legislative grants. I have a special term for it, but I can't really say it on the I only can. Well, I say it on the radio all the time, but you're not going to bait me. I'm not going to let you bait me. Let's put it this way. It has to do with massage. The legislative grant program, where the legislators kind of get on their knees and beg for money for the local districts, as corrupt as it can possibly be. The House Speaker took $126,000 of our taxpayer money and doled it out in his district because he can. Well, Ken had an idea on how this could be stopped, that the governor could petition the Supreme Court.
The fact that the Speaker granted himself $126,000 is just an outrage, and he obviously has no shame because he did it right out in the open and everything else. It has to end. It's the poster child for bad government, and I believe that the governor's office can easily and quickly move this to the court system and get the answer that we all need, which is it is in fact unconstitutional, and end it.
Yeah, well, guess what? Check this headline in the Providence Journal today. Deep, page A5, governor to examine legislative grants. Boy, the governor has been on a losing streak with me and perhaps others, but when I saw this quote, I thought maybe, just maybe, she could make a little bit of a comeback. Here's what her spokesperson says. The team is going to look more into the concerns raised. You know, it's like, you know, tidbits, you know, but it's something. If the governor ever stood up and said, I think the Speaker and the Senate President should knock off the legislative grant program, I might seize up. But it would be a change that would change everything in this state. Because if you don't think roadworks and these multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar programs aren't affected by the currency of legislative grants, you're whistling Dixie. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you're the problem. All right, last thought today. Harriet Tubman finally made it on a bill. Women have broken through the currency ceiling. This was decided today. Here's your headline. She couldn't break through on the 10. The original plan was the 10, but Alexander Hamilton is like some cult figure now, Broadway and everything else, held on to the $10 bill. And Andrew Jackson has been eliminated from the 20. And Harriet Tubman, Underground Railroad, you know, I wonder if we did a person on the street out there. Who's Harriet Tubman? What do you think, Lex?
Let's do it.
We should do that. I hope everybody knows.
We'll put up a Twitter poll.
We'll put up a Twitter poll. Social media guru, Lexi Chris. All right, are you paying attention to this issue? You should. Here's a headline amongst so many that I have read and taken a peek at lately, and here's the picture of the conversation, really. This is the whole thing right here, this kit and caboodle. This is the villain for those who live in Burrillville. This is the financial opportunity for those who want to build it, and reportedly, electric bills will be saved across the grid if it's erected. Some of the perspectives. Paul Roselli is the president of the Burrillville Land Trust. Welcome. Thanks for joining me.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for doing this, too.
You bet. Well, I think I have a funny feeling it's going to be the beginning of a bunch of conversations about this. And in a way, I feel somewhat guilty because this thing has been off and running now for some time. We haven't really paid enough attention to it. And I have to admit that a bunch of buddies who live around Burrillville have been saying, hey, Danny, when are you going to get into this Burrillville plant thing? And I'm like, you know what, okay, I better. And then wouldn't you know it, they had a little protest yesterday, and you're going to meet some of the protesters. But give me your one fell swoop bumper sticker answer to the question of what's going on here, and then we'll dig in a little bit after the break.
Sure. Well, first of all, we got to think of this as a statewide issue. The governor made it a statewide issue.
By supporting it.
By supporting it. As soon as she came out and said that she's in support of this power plant, it became a statewide issue. So it's not just a Burrillville issue anymore. This is in direct conflict with the Resilient Rhode Island Act. The Resilient Rhode Island Act was a law signed by Governor Chafee in 2014. It became law. It's public policy now. And as public policy, even though the law doesn't have any teeth or any restrictions on it in terms of regulatory authority, it's public policy. With this power plant alone and all the other facets of this power plant combined, because it's not just the generation of electricity, it's the 2 million gallon oil tank, it's the ammonia tank, it's putting electricity on the grid. All of those contribute to this thing called climate change. And if you ask any land trust anywhere in the state, they'll say, what's the biggest threat to their own land? It's climate change.
All right, hold that thought. You almost qualified for a short bumper sticker answer to a question. All right, I'll get you going. By the time we're done a year from now with this controversy, I'll have you trained. Because I have a feeling you'll be around a little bit. Before we get back to Paul, I just wanted to mention that our fine sponsor, Cumberland Kitchen Bath Design Center, is the place to get your kitchen or bath renovated. As I've been telling you, I know that trust, we're talking about trust with this particular issue tonight, a lot of trust issues. One of the biggest worries people have when they do a major renovation is whether or not this thing is going to come in on time and on budget. And all I can do is assure you that what happened to me is what has happened to so many customers that I've met at Cumberland Kitchen Bath Design Center. That the project that they did for me came in on time and on budget. And by the way, it's gorgeous. Call them. More on the Burrillville plant when we come back. Stay with us. So that is information that you can find on the website, the Town of Burrillville website, and the actual presentation for the energy plant there, which is known as the Clean River Energy Center. Invinergy is the name of the company. They're a Midwest company that clearly has put some money down in confidence that they're going to have a deal here, because I don't know what the exact language is, but I think they've got some puts out there in terms of wattage that they're able to deliver to potential investors to help build this thing. So with the governor's support of this, I don't know if they made their investments or the promise for investments before or after the governor suggested that she thought this was a good idea. But at least I checked, the state really hasn't approved this yet, and the advisory board, the planning board in Burrillville hasn't come up with an advice yet either. So I don't know if there's carts before horses here, or what do you think, Paul?
Well, perhaps, but I think another approach to think about this is what the governor said in terms of when she supported this. So she supported this in terms of a bridge fuel. It's a bridge fuel. You know, we get the natural gas, we put it in a power plant. I remember growing up in the 50s, and I remember this bridge fuel that just came out in the 50s. It was called natural gas. Natural gas in the 1950s with smokestacks, oil, diesel oil as a secondary burning fuel. Her bridge fuel is really a bridge to nowhere. It's a stoppage. It's a one-way bridge leading out of state.
Let's set this up. Once upon a time, this company said, "Hey, listen, we want to be growing our energy business here, and they want to sell electric. All right, so they're going to power it with natural gas and with some oil, I guess, in the off months, which is a concern, I think, for truck traffic and all that other kind of stuff that will go on here. But the governor's position, if I understand it, is, hey, listen, this is going to help customers throughout the region here because the grid will be filled with more wattage, and so it'll be less expensive, and da-da-da-da, that's how it goes. I think that's their premise, yes?
That's their premise, sure. And if you read the details, and you got to look at the details, most of the electricity goes to a place, what's called the Jackson substation, which is right on the border of Massachusetts and Rhode Island. And then that electricity goes to a place in Blackstone. If you follow the money, and if you follow where the wattage goes, most of that goes to Boston, because that's where the growth center is. We do really well in Rhode Island with conservation, mostly from National Grid, with their conservation plans. We do really, really well. And we're on the upswing when it comes to solar, renewables, wind power. We're on the upswing at a point that it's actually starting to compete with all those other things that we used to think as being normal. And now all of a sudden we've got this huge power plant, a gigawatt. I think your chart showed that this is going to be a gigawatt of power for the region, with a savings of, you know, if you do the math, it comes out to about 94 cents a day per person in the state of Rhode Island. 94 cents a day. Do you drink coffee?
I don't.
Well, whatever.
But I get your point.
Yeah.
What is your role in this with the land trust? What's your specific point of view?
Sure. So we're a private nonprofit land trust in the town of Burrillville. Means we get property through either acquisitions or outright purchases.
And open space is important.
Open space is important. We do in Burrillville. There's a lot of forested land actually, because of secondary growth from the 1800s. So we set that aside. The state has a huge investment of open space in the northwest corner of Rhode Island. Everything from Washington Campground to Pulaski Park to Black Hut, certainly all of the land trust land. Most of it has been with open space bond monies. So when you go and you click that little lever, or you draw that mark between the tail and the head of an arrow for open space, that's where the money goes. The state,
translation, when you vote.
When you vote.
In case you're confused.
Got it. And we love open space in Rhode Island, across the board, wherever you are.
This would be the second plant in Rhode Island, correct? I mean, in Burrillville.
In Burrillville, it'll be the second plant. So right now, there's Ocean State Power.
So answer this question. I'm going to ask my guests coming up in the next segment as well. Is this typical not in my backyard type of behavior?
It could be, but if you look at the pattern of power plants within the northeast corridor between Boston and Rhode Island, you'll see that most of them are in rural, poor areas. That's where they're sited. Most of the plants that are being phased out, like the one at Brighton Point, very populous areas, very rich communities. Why not put it in one of those places that already has the infrastructure, already has all the pipelines, already has the roads and the construction? Why put it in a place that is pristine with a lot of investment of both time, money, and effort?
We'll leave that question on a rhetorical basis for now. I think this is just the beginning of the conversation. Appreciate you coming. When we come back, a couple of people who were at the State House yesterday made a little bit of news by stepping into the state room saying we're not leaving. But they did. But they've got an argument. Stay with us. So there's our beloved State House. with the independent man on top, and inside yesterday were some folks who were saying, hey, listen, we don't like this Burrillville plant. There you go. And one woman actually said, I'm not leaving, and she was asked to leave again, and she didn't, I guess she just didn't leave. And she ended up, what, a couple hours in the slammer? Is that how it worked out?
At the state police barracks.
I hate it when that happens. Yeah. But sometimes, I don't know, it was proffered to us that you guys weren't going to leave until the governor changed her mind. I thought that might be a little bit aggressive, given that these kinds of protests generally take some time. Kathy Martley is a co-founder of the Burrillville Against Spectra expansion. Spectra is the the home company for
Spectra has a pipeline that cuts through Burrillville, in which they expanded.
Oh, that's the pipeline, right? So that's your first.
That's the
first project,
right?
All right. So you've had that going on, and now you've got this
Invenergy.
the Invenergy Clean Energy Plant, the Clean Energy Center, Clean River Energy Center, the big power plant they want to put in Burrillville. And Nick is part of this organization. You kind of work on this kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, I'm with a group called FANG, who has been supporting folks in Burrillville with the fight against Spectra and now the fight against the power plant for a couple of years now.
Okay. This is your second project because, well, how have you done on the first one? The first one is...
Well, the first one they expanded, the first expansion, they already did on the compressor station. It's called looping. They put an adjacent pipe on the side of the 1953 pipe all the way from Boston to...
down to New York for different segments.
Right, and so they could change the flow of the gas. It's for export. So they hooked up to TransCanada.
They hooked up to, so the first Spectra expansion brought more gas up through the Northeast, and they want to ship it to Nova Scotia, where there's proposed liquefied natural gas export terminals. And this is the same pipeline that would also bring the gas to the Invenergy fossil fuel plant.
All right, so you've at least accustomed yourself a little bit as a citizen getting involved in these public policy issues.
Yeah.
Your opposition to this plant is what?
The pollution, environmental, health impacts. I've had asthma since I was born next door to the house that I live in now, since I was little. A lot of people around the area have COPD, asthma, a lot of irritation, eye irritation, nose irritation, because of all the volatile compounds that come out of the compressor station, the blow-offs, and the blow-offs.
So you already think you're an environmental victim?
Right, right.
Wow.
We have a very bad water table in my backyard. It's totally swamp. Totally swamp. You can't build on any of it. I have 11.5 acres you cannot build on.
You're not a Burrillville resident?
No, I live in Providence.
Right, okay, so this is just part of your advocacy.
Right, and
make the acute argument for people as to why you think this power plant is so not a good idea.
Well, so one, the power plant is not necessary to meet our electrical needs because, as Paul said, we're doing such a great job with renewable energy, energy efficiency. So this plant isn't actually necessary. And second, it's 2016. In 2016, we should not be building more fossil fuel power plants. We already know the climate change impacts are real and happening right now and hurting communities across the world. And also in Burrillville, a community that already has a power plant, 2 gas compressor stations, 2 interstate gas pipelines. It's not right to build this power plant anywhere, and especially it's not right to build this power plant in Burrillville.
Let's talk about your local government reaction to this. The town council has no opinion on this right now, I'm told. The website says that they're neutral. At least that's what it says. Michael Woods, the town manager, responded to our request to appear on the show and said, logistics and traveling right now, can't do it. Perhaps in the future, which is code for no thank you. Hey Mike, it's really important to inform the people of your community and the surrounding communities as to what the truth is, and I hope that you rethink that, because administrators and town managers and politicians who run away from easy questions only create more worry about transparency. And I'm a little bit concerned about the transparency issue in the sense that the town council reportedly has engaged in a tax in lieu of tax agreement with the company.
Yes.
And did so without letting the people know, correct?
Right.
Talk to me about how that went over.
Well, I would go into the town council to talk about the compressor station first 2 years ago. And now, when Governor Raimondo came out with the Invenergy, then we went right to the town council to ask them questions about it. They gave us no answers at all, said they didn't know much about it. And then we went again when we found the facts out about the application. We went back to try to discuss problems that with the application, worries that we had, towers that are 200 feet tall. They're going to have beacon lights on them. Right near Wilson's Pond. We won't need lights on our boats anymore because we're going to have floodlights going all over in the woods. You know, it's a little rural place there, you know, and
all that.
And it's going to be hooked to the Spectra Energy's compression station.
All right, but you veered off into some of the arguments. But the point of the matter is that town council has entered into a negotiation with an alleged objective in spectator disposition. I'm not so sure you can have both.
Right, and the power plant was publicly announced in August, and some folks in Burrillville actually went back and found a video of a town council meeting from March 10th, where the town council, Michael Wood actually spells out Invenergy. He spells it I-N, spells out the whole word.
It's Michael Wood, by the way, right? Not Michael Woods. I might have said Woods, but go ahead.
So March 10th, at least, the town council knew about this, and they didn't, tell anybody else in the town, anyone else in the state until August, and that's just not right.
Yeah, I get it. And so, there's a process here. The actual deciders are a state board. There's an energy siting board with 3 titular heads that have to make this decision, including the DEM director, but also the planning board. We've got a little bit of a timeline here that we can show you. The planning board has got its own schedule of and this is like one thing after the other, bang, bang, bang. Right. Began April 1st of this month and runs right down to July. And you can take a look on the website on the town to find, I'm sure, what all this is going to be. But at the end of it, the decision from the planning board is simply advisory to begin with. And so here's the question I have. You've watched this stuff from a professional point of view. Who's making the call here?
So, we took action yesterday at Governor Raimondo's office because we really feel, Governor Raimondo has a responsibility to listen to her constituents and listen to the people of Burrillville and come out and oppose this power plant.
I get that, but what's your experience tell you that the relationship between the town and the siting board is what?
Right, so there's many ways to stop this project. The siting board can reject it. The town can refuse to negotiate a tax agreement. They can refuse to give the company variances for noise, for zoning laws. Invenergy also needs 2 serious permits from the DEM. They need a permit from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers.
So the state can't shove it down Burrillville's throat necessarily unless Burrillville acquiesces at some level, correct? And your thought, and we're running out of time, and I knew this would go this way. We'll have you on the radio soon to follow up. Give me a 10-second thought about what you think is going to happen here.
I think they're trying to muffle us over in the town council, just to appease us with different little pieces of things like they're putting on the website, and I think they have their mind already made up. But we're not going to let them stop with that.
Well, we're going to invite town councilors, again, the town manager, hopefully the siting commission from the state on to discuss this because it's too big an issue to be swept under the Burrillville rug. And as Paul said earlier, it's a statewide conversation. Thanks for coming. We'll follow up, promise.
Thank you.
Final word when we come back. Stay with us. I can't emphasize enough that transparency is an important public service. And so if you're on the government side of this Burrillville conversation, the seats are here for you. I'll see you on the radio tomorrow at noon on WPRO. Bye-bye.